There's no electronic participation today. I think Mike is coming back, right? He's not.
Yeah, he's there.
So, Mr. Connor, Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Next one is is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Connor, Mr. DePaul, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Barron?
Yes.
Mr. Ali?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
You want to?
Yes.
Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mr. Gilio?
Yes.
Have it with you?
Dr. Farmer?
Yes.
And
That's
Mr.
not
Poe?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Right, next one is the School Board Committee and Liaison Assignment Discussion. Madam Clerk, would you please hand out that document you have, please? That's the committee assignment, the dates. Okay, go ahead. The next one is the committee assignment, right?
There and there.
There and there. Right, go ahead, Mr. Connor.
And each one?
Each one, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you,
Mr. Connor, the floor is yours.
Did we determine to vote for chairman or some chairman's?
It's there.
Okay. Our discussion of committee assignments for the 25-26 school year are as follows. Finance and Facilities Committee will be Mr. DePaul, Mr. Connor, and Mr. Alany. Legislative Advocacy and Community Relations Committee will be Mr. Jalil, Dr. Farmer, and Mr. DePaul. Academic Success Committee will be Ms. Lowry, Dr. Farmer, and Mr. Barron. Ad hoc Discipline Policy Review Committee and the Student Discipline Committee will be Mr. Connor, Mr. Barron, and Mr. Poe. Ad hoc Achievement Gap Committee is Ms. Lowry, Dr. Farmer, Carl Luce, Danny McCain, Dr. Day, Kim Dyke, S. Campbell, and Kay Fleming. And then our governing boards, liaisons, Laurel Regional will be Letitia Lowry, CVCC will be Ms. Lowry, Governors Accelerate Academy will be Mr. Poe, and community groups that we will interact with, the Education Foundation will be Dr. Farmer and Mr. Jalil, Beacon of Hope will be Poe and Barron, and Partners in Education will be Alany and Farmer.
Mr. Do you have that policy work group sheet? Did you make a printout? You have the meeting dates here for all these meetings. Ms. Day will coordinate. Please make sure when you make the agenda, you do that in coordination with the superintendent. And the minutes need to be documented. These are public meetings because there are 3 members present for every board meeting, every of these meetings. So the agenda needs to be posted on board docs, and the minutes need to be documented because it's 3 or more board members in there. And that's the, go ahead. So the policy work groups, Mr. Connor.
Policy work groups, the school board policy work groups will consist of governance, will be Dr. Gupta and Darrell Connor. Fiscal management will be Mr. DePaul and Mr. Alany. Curriculum and instruction will be Ms. Lowry and Mr. Barron. Student services will be Mr. Poe and Dr. Farmer. Human resources will work with Jalil and Alany, and operations and community will be Barron and Poe.
And there'll be a superintendent representative in each of these policies. Have you decided who'll be or you'll do it at a later date?
I'll do it, I'll work with the team tomorrow and have names by the end of the week, yes.
And if you are Policy work groups, you'll contact, your liaison will contact the policy work groups if there's any changes or the committee meetings need to happen, right?
Okay, yes, thank you.
Okay. This, as you know, our policy, only thing it allows the chair and vice chair is to assign members to the different committees. So I met with Mr. Connor a few times, and we went through that. And what I did from my side was looked at the places where the openings were and plugged in the new members into those places. Governance is by default chair and vice chair. So later years, as you have chair and vice chair, they go into governance policy work group. So there's, others are assigned, only one is by default. We good? I think next one is LCS Restore, Dr. Mijit.
Yes.
Say it again?
Okay. After that. Consent agenda, make sure
Yeah.
but it's after that.
All right, good evening. Before I turn it over to Dr. Davis and Ms. Jamies to talk about LCS Restore, I did prepare some remarks, just some items that I want to make sure that I cover in its entirety. So I do want to start off with, first, I want to thank you to the school board just for your commitment and understanding the data and what we have going on in the division. One of the key things that I know that I was asked initially was we want to make sure that where's the data? We want to know what's going on with all programs and what's happening in the division. And so I know tonight just your desire to see the full picture, but to have the full picture so that you all, because you're the ultimate decision makers, I make recommendations, but you're the ultimate decision makers, and so that you have all of the data and resources that you need to make sound decisions in regards to our academics or financial decisions on behalf of students and our staff. So before she begins, I want to kind of preface it with this, and I want to frame a few things. The data you'll see tonight is being shared in response to specific requests that I received regarding the Restore Academies and alternative ed programs. And really looking at that just to ensure that we're going to have that keen eye, like I said earlier, on every single program and what we have going on. So tonight, you will hear from Dr. Davis about LCS Elementary Restore, Secondary Restore, and then overall updates for alternative education program. Ms. Jamies, Financial Officer, will provide a written summary of financial implications that are tied to the programs. But as you review the presentation, you'll see both student counts, achievement data. I encourage you to think about this information from multiple perspectives. The quantitative piece, the numbers, but then also the qualitative pieces, looking at the lived experiences of our students and our staff that are working together in these programs. I also want to just provide you with some insight into a conversation that, a preview of an upcoming conversation that I'd like to have with you all regarding the discipline policy. I know that committees were formed tonight, and so I would bring that to this committee, but I wanted to put it out there because it's all connected to this, what we're looking at tonight. Specifically, I'd like us to, in the near future, to be able to get with the discipline committee to talk about policy JGD/JGE and its student suspension and expulsion. And in particular, when we're looking at infractions of profanity, where they automatically go to the board to be considered for consideration, I'd like for us to go back and revisit that, because looking at, don't get me wrong, inappropriate language is inappropriate language, and there should be consequences. We should not be speaking profanely to one another. However, I do want us to go back and think about the context with the policy and looking at how we can put some steps in place. Is this a threat, or is this a poor decision that we need to work with you through to rectify, versus it coming all the way to the board for consideration for expulsion? So I wanted to put that out there because it does tie into what a lot of the data and information that you'll hear tonight when it comes to the programs, just to ensure that we're not adding additional students to programs when we can go ahead and kind of prevent some things early on. And so, but to be clear, I don't condone inappropriate language or anything like that. So I want to be very clear about that. But I want to make sure my goal is always to serve at the pleasure of the board, but also to make recommendations to support you in your policies to ensure that you have, you can make thoughtful decisions. And so with this, you'll see the connection between behavior, academic performance, and this will give you broader conversations. I know you all have been doing a lot of work with the ad hoc committee for the academic achievement gap, and just making sure that we don't have things in place that, contribute to that. As always, I believe in telling our story and telling my story. I always want to be honest about what we're doing. So as we were gathering the data, I did have an opportunity to speak to the two coordinators or administrators for the Restore program. I shared, hey, there are questions that people have, and rightfully so, about the program effectiveness and associated cost. I will say, as they go into the data and the information, there were a lot of grants that were paying for things, and it has moved over to the local side. And Ms. James will explain it much better than I will. It was like peeling an onion. That's the best way I can say it. There were so many layers. There was a lot of information that was convoluted. Nothing towards the administrators or anything for the program, but just trying to peel back the layers to get information of which grant pays for this, which grant covers that, what's coming from local funds. And much of, you may already, I'm just getting here, so you may already know the information. And when I talk about my entry plan tonight, that's what my job is to do, to come in for that first 90 days and just see what's working really well. And then if there's something that we have to examine, that we examine it. And that, I told you all, I'll give you the information. That's what I'm going to do. Okay? And so looking at that, I just want to make sure that I kind of frame it in that lens. As always, you wouldn't be here if you weren't here to take care of kids. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's at the center. You all spend a lot of time with very little compensation, or none at all, to be here. So I want to make sure that we're doing that. At the same time, I always have to look at, we're going to take care of kids, but we also have to be mindful of our resources as well. So how do we do all the things to support children, but stay within, healthy fiscal means? And so tonight is a work session. I'm not making any recommendation tonight. I would ask that after this, you have an opportunity to digest, and any questions that you have, that definitely ask, and ask tonight. And if we can answer it tonight and we have that data, we will answer it for you. If we don't, we'll always be honest and say, we don't have that right now, but we'll get that out to the whole board. So I wanted to be clear with that. But I would like to take this to the Finance Committee. Now that I know who's on committees, I'd love to take this to the first Finance Committee, so that after you discuss tonight, that we can take it there and have further discussion if possible. Thank you for indulging me with all of that, but I wanted to set that up so that you understood sort of how we got here and why we're presenting this information tonight. And if there isn't anything else, do you have something, Dr. Gupta?
Let me just intervene. You mentioned a few things about that's going to the committee, and I missed, and apologize, Ms. Day has 3 more handouts to give. You want to hand them out? I was talking to Mr. Connor, because there are policies in the board in terms of how we conduct ourselves and what the mode of communication will be.
Okay.
And one is from Dr. Day in terms of do's and don'ts. Dr. Day was very methodical about every policy. Mm-hmm. So just a handout to make sure everybody is aware of that. That's part of the record. And as you mentioned, few things which are relevant to the handout. That's why I'm sorry I brought it up.
Oh, no,
I was thinking of doing it later on. And I just want to emphasize one thing, as she said, it goes to the committee structure. The board's role is setting policies. That's our lane. Superintendent's lane is to run the district on a day-to-day basis. That's not our job. So if I go there and collect data from a principal, I got to follow the chain of command, which goes through the principal to the deputy superintendent, to the superintendent, to the school board. School board is not, by code, is not out there collecting information. You know what I'm saying? There are roles defined in the Virginia Code which are very clear. So if you want to change that, we got to change the policies. So we run the school district based on policy, and we hold her accountable for implementing those policies 100%. Not 98%, not 99%, 100%. That's the will of the board. The will of the board is told to the superintendent in the language of policy. So I just wanted to make sure all these 3 are there, because Dr. Day did a lot of hard work in putting it together. He'll be missed, but I just want to make sure that everybody has it in black and white, and it's documented in board docs. that these policies exist. There are a lot of other policies, but these are crucial in light of the discussion you just mentioned. Thank you.
No.
Floor is all yours.
No, perfect, thank you. And that lends perfectly with absolutely board sets policy. And that's why I was in here humbly requesting that when we get to the discipline committee, that we take a look at that policy and come forward with, my team and I will come forward with some suggested revisions. But of course, we recognize the board always sets it.
And boards, last year, we had an ad hoc review committee on looking at different discipline issues. And the board's concern was that we need to create a environment conducive to learning. Discipline needs to be there, and the principals need to be accountable for enforcing that discipline across the schools. And consistency of enforcement is important, and it was part of the discussion. I just wanted to give that context.
Oh, yes,
In
absolutely.
terms of policy and then enforcing that policy. Five fingers are different size, but in terms of policy implementation, that has to be consistent
Yes.
across the district. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, so at this time, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Davis. She's going to provide the overall counts and data from the program, and then Ms. Jamie's passed out sort of, I would say a one-pager, but a multi-pager, to just kind of give you some information on the fiscal implications.
So good evening to everyone. Again, just to follow up, I appreciate Dr. Majette for leading into that information. The goal is for transparency and consistency in the data that we're reporting to you. And as we get in here, some of you may say, that doesn't look like a lot. But we want to make sure that what we're presenting is consistent and provide the why and the backstory to some of these pieces. I also sit here before you and tell you this won't be the only time that we revisit this. We want to continue to come back to the table. I want you to hold us accountable for updating on the information. And when we tell you we're going to do something, I want you to hold us to that because that's our expectation as well. So we're starting on a little bit of a smaller scale instead of trying to hit all of the alternative education programs that we serve in the division, because we want to make sure that we give you clear-cut information, clear-cut data, and then we want to make sure that when we're going back to the table, we're refining, we're revisiting, and reinforcing those particular data points that we have reported on. So we'll start tonight, and again, we'll focus on some other areas, but we'll start tonight with elementary and secondary restorative academy. So if you've heard the term RA or RAE, the overall goals, this is going into its third year of implementation. The goals for the program are to provide a safe and structured, supportive, and relationship-centered environment. It's to help students develop those skills necessary and needed to succeed both academically and socially, so to ensure that we are focusing on all aspects of the student. And ultimately, we want to address the root cause of behavior in a restorative manner so we can return students back to their home or base school. What's currently being served, so we have an understanding, again, going into year 3, grades kindergarten and first grade for RA elementary. We are identifying tier 2 behaviors, and we throw a lot of educational jargon out sometimes, and I'll be the first one to admit it. I'll get on a roll sometimes, but a tier 2 would mean we are serving students who maybe need some additional supports. It may not be egregious behaviors, but we know that they need a little bit extra to be successful. So that was the primary focus of RA, both elementary and secondary. Time frame for RA elementary, students would stay for up to 2 9-week periods, and then the goal at that point is to determine transitions to see if a student may need to, we might need to visit another placement, we may need to visit the transition alternative program, which would serve some of those tier 3 behaviors. I'll get into that a little bit more, or if they are prepared to go back to their base school successfully at that time. When we get into secondary RA, it's serving grades 6th and 9th, and that's for a 9-week period, so up to a 9-week period. Some of you may say, why are we focusing on K1, 6, and 9? Because data has shown that those transition years are the toughest years for students. And where data showed also that we were seeing a peak in discipline over the last several years, so that's why those were primary areas of focus. So this is to give some numbers, put some numbers to things. We did include all of it for alternatives, so you could see because of the transitional component. 142 students were served this past year at Fort Hill. That's 90 total students, 30 for the middle school and 60 for high school. Again, that is space for what we can serve in person. There are some students on remote services as well. Their transition alternative program, which is referred to as TAP, will cover more in depth at a later time. Served 18 students this year. The capacity at any given time is 18. So it served a total of 18 students this year, and the capacity at any given time is 18. Restorative Academy Secondary served 63 students this year, and their capacity for the year was, at any given time is 30. So served a total of 63 students. Restorative Academy Elementary had 16 enrolled this year. Their capacity is 20 at any given time. And the Restorative Suspension Center, which we'll go into a little further, again at a later date, 297 students were served, and they can serve up to 24 per day. And that may be related to a short-term suspension, so if they're going over for a day or 3 days instead of a long-term suspension. And those are for our secondary students only. So Restorative Suspension Center is for our secondary students only, and we'll get more into that later on. 536 total students were served last year in these particular programs. So getting into a little bit further into Restorative Academy Elementary, so RAE, 24-25, again, that maximum of 20 students. There were 17 students served. We finished with 16, but 17 total students served in K and 1. 10 of those students transitioned back to their base school, so back to their home school. Remaining students were enrolled in Laurel, TAP, or re-enrolled with RAE where it was possible. Again, that being K and 1, if it was a first grade student, couldn't re-enroll that student because they had aged out at that point. 2 students are re-enrolling in the fall with RA Elementary, so transitioning back in to serve an additional 9 weeks at that point. 2 students transferred to TAP due to their age, so TAP being that Tier 3 service. And 1 will enroll in a private day program. Do you currently have a waiting list of approximately 11 students for the 25-26 school year? That wait list is worked on with our principals with specific criteria of who makes it on that wait list, a behavior plan going in place before students are actually able to be placed on that wait list for consideration. Restorative Academy Secondary, again, 60 students finished at the end of the programming, grades 6 and 9. 43 of those students, so we had a high success rate, 43 of those students transferred back to their base school successfully. The capacity is 30. Again, space does become an issue. They do serve a new group of students every 9 weeks. Our coordinators work very hard to, again, work with the base schools, work with our supervisor of discipline, and work with our student services team overall to have successful transitions back in. Give you a little bit more of an update as far as tiering of services. Tier 1 is what, if we're talking about behaviors, we're talking about academics. Tier 1 is what we give all students. We're going to give all students the same thing across the board each and every time. When we give that, that's when we determine if things are not working for a student, whether that be academically, socially, behaviorally, what other supports do we need to put in place to help that student be successful? So understanding that those Tier 2 services may or may not work. So that's part of that transition plan as we're talking and working through, going back through the data. Some of you may say, what does it look like year to year? I can't give you a specific year to year and do that in a successful manner because the program has looked a little different though it's been serving K and 1 and 6 and 9, the programs looked a little bit different year by year. So starting out a couple of years ago, making sure that we're getting staffing in, getting some supports in, giving explanation to the base schools of what it needed to look like, that took a little bit of time. So first 9 weeks was kind of a grow moving in. Different locations. RA Elementary is currently in the T.C. Miller building. They have been there throughout their time. RA Secondary transitioned into Dunbar this year. Restorative Suspension Center is still being served out of the Amelia Pride building. So different components. If we're not fully staffed in those spaces, if we're not fully staffed, we can't hold as many students. Staffing has been a concern, and making sure that we have certified staff in those areas as well to provide the supports. So those things have been a concern. Placements in those locations can be a concern as well. So if a student's on a wait list, on a wait list from a school, but there's been a placement in that location, that then takes up one of those particular spots or slots for another student. So varying factors have contributed. So the data that we're giving you, that is the clean data we can say, this happened in the first year, this happened in the second year, and this is the intent for it to happen in the third year. What we want to do is make sure that we're going back in and evaluating systems and processes and cleaning those things up, providing you valuable data as we come back to the table and saying, this is what we're providing. We're looking at some things in full transparency academically in all of those areas to provide consistency for more effective transitions back into the base school for all students. And even if it's not a base school transition, the work that we're currently looking at is making sure that we're wrapping around that whole student. If we're not able to provide those behavior supports, making sure we are noting that, we're taking the appropriate steps and taking the appropriate data each and every day to transition that student where they're going to be successful, and making sure that we are doing so in an effective manner for that student so that they can thrive academically as well when they step outside of our building. That could result in home services, that could resort in an outside placement, or it could result going back into a base school or another tiered program, a tiered 3 program, a Fort Hill or a transition alternative program at this point.
Questions? Thank you. Mr. Lowry?
Okay, so two questions I have. One, last year when I talked to the bus drivers, and I know the gentleman is going to be new, that's the director or the principal of the Fort Hill, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
Dr. Turner.
So, just wondering, because we have a policy in place, but the bus drivers don't feel it was in the past followed when students were rude to them, cussed them out, things like that. I'm just wondering what new things he might do according to the policy to make sure we're not losing bus drivers because of the way the students are treating them. And then my other question was, thank you for addressing the academic piece, because that's one thing that was brought up last year that I really pushed on. But I think it would help, because the question I wrote down was, our concern last year was the complaint by base school teachers that students were returning further behind academically than when they left. So I know they're there for a reason that disrupts their academic process, but is there a way base teachers can be notified as to why assignments or progress were slowed and an appropriate starting point to be given to them so they know where to pick up academically for those students?
Yes, ma'am. That can be included in the transition plan. So I'm going to answer your questions backward, because that first one I'll be able to spit out just a little bit quicker.
Okay.
So we do understand that is an additional barrier. And then when we're going back into a school, at what point that student goes out, it's important to have consistent, not only consistent progress for that student, but a consistent platform to provide. So those are some of the pieces that we're looking at, conducted by a certified teacher, making sure that our team, we have some of our directors and coordinators and teams sitting here with us, but making sure our team right now is looking at that instruction to say, does it align to our logs, our learning outcomes and goals? Are we pacing in the appropriate space? And if we are behind, are we communicating and saying, yes, the student's a little bit further behind. Maybe they were absent, maybe we had a lull, or maybe we're not prepared to go back in and our transition plan itself needs to look a little bit different. But providing that consistent platform and the expectations of lesson plans and alignment and rigor to the curriculum, Benchmark has helped a great deal for us. And knowing for the literacy curriculum for elementary, we're working through HMH. But going into next year, part of these adoptions that we're doing is that consistent platform for textbooks, so consistent platforms for curriculum. But we do have several members of our team dedicated to that work for all students.
Yes, because I know the team works hard, and I know teachers work,
Yes.
with the students there diligently. As I guess maybe teachers are just concerned, like,
Absolutely.
how come they're, well, because this, and this happened, that's why. So you need to
Right.
probably start them around this area
Right.
instead of where they were when they left, because, their disruptive behavior is the reason why they're here. So this
That's
is why
correct.
we're,
Right, and we certainly don't want them to step backwards when we have built up those behaviors and those systems. So the platform and the things that we're looking at and reviewing right now, we've got a couple actually we're looking at, and we're excited to present more on them. I'm really excited, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. I want to make sure it's exactly what we need it to be. But we would be able to open that platform up and share that work with the teacher and with that school to say, this is the work they've done, this is the mastery they've shown, instead of just a report of saying, this is where they've left off.
now, does that get shared with only the base teacher or the base teacher and the counselor at the school?
Once we give access, that can be shared with who that principal sees
Fit.
fit.
Okay, the
Mhm. So
principal
it could be-
decides.
It could also be coaches.
Okay.
And then they're also, again, elementary, secondary, we're still doing those common assessments. We're still doing VKRP. We're still doing vowels. So all of those baseline assessments, if student reading plan information, all of that is still occurring in those locations.
Okay, great.
And then you asked me about the
bus.
buses. Dr. Turner has a wealth of knowledge and experience, which we're very excited about. I've met with him a couple of times, and he has brought up various items, one of those being behavior and consistency. So I think you will see some
Good,
changes in that
good.
this year. He is very aware of that.
Yeah.
Mr. Conner?
Yeah, can you put the slide back up where you show TAP and elementary RA?
Sure, I sure cannot, but I'm sure somebody special back there can put it back on the screen for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the capacity for the TAP program is 18, and that covers grades
K through 5.
K through 5?
Yes, sir.
So how many per grade is that? That seems to be a mighty small.
Yes, and that's based on some studies and data for serving those those tier 3 behaviors that I mentioned. So what that typically looks like is some grade banding. So like a K1, 2, 3, and a 4, 5, it's 3 classrooms there. We try to do it based on need. Sometimes if we have higher 5th grade, and we've seen some lower numbers in another grade level, it may just be one specific grade level with some grade banding. It has helped having RA elementary to reduce some of the numbers for K1, but in full transparency, spacing has been an issue for that as well.
Okay, so I'm looking at the RA elementary.
Yes.
The capacity is 20.
Yes,
And the total enrollment for the year was 16, and those were over 9-week periods.
yes, sir.
So it looks like there's a lot more capacity in the RA that could be used in the TAP program.
Yes.
Am I looking at that the
You are.
right way?
You are, and that's one of the things that going into this year, we were doing some prep as soon as those questions came up of what are our systems in place? How are we moving students along? How are we providing those supports? And getting that true rotation of what it's supposed to look like. So you are correct. That's one of the things at the top of the agenda to review.
So I want to make sure I understand.
Yes, sir.
So as a layman, tier 2 behavior is more severe than tier 3, or tier 3 behavior is more severe than, so we actually, in the highest level of severe behavior, have the lowest amount of capacity.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes,
should
that's
be-
exactly right. So
So we
tier
should-
1 is everybody. You think about it in a triangle form. So the tip top would be your smallest amount. So that's going to be your more severe behaviors in those pieces. So the higher the number climbs, the more severe it could be.
Other
So-
go ahead.
Good.
Other questions?
Just one. You mentioned 11 students on the waiting list. What happens to them in the meantime? Like, are they going to school still with a discipline action and plan in place and that sort of thing, or?
That has often, yes, sir, that's often occurred with behavior supports in place. So we may have behavior coaches, restorative specialists, or excuse me, restorative interventionists. We have support staff in place. It may even be some outside agencies that are providing some of those supports in the meantime for students. Unfortunately, some students, again, I'll be transparent, some students have been suspended or they are on a waiting list outside of being in the school division to come into some of those
So
programs.
some of those 11 may be suspended in the meantime versus some may be actually at their schools.
They could be, depending on what behavior led to some of those pieces. And again, following the policy that's in place, that could have led to that waiting list of getting back in.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a, go ahead, Mr.
Yeah, given that truancy is a big problem.
Yes.
How does this relate to those kids? And what percentage of the kids would be suffering in that capacity?
When you say those kids, can you just give me a better, the kids that are outplaced,
Yes,
like
the
at
kids are-
home?
Yeah, at home, yeah.
So we would still provide some home educational services. That would be the goal, or some supports, but that could lend itself to some truancy issues. And I will say, I don't want to speak out of turn, but sometimes some truancy issues have already become a concern before that even occurs for some of our students who are outplaced. It could have been that chronic absenteeism has already hit, leading to some behaviors as well.
I have a question. So you said Restore Elementary had 16 students served over the year. So if we just take a snapshot of today,
Yes, sir.
how many students will you find in RA?
Oh, how many students, I'm sorry?
Yeah, how many will be enrolled? So if, like, say, November 24th of 2024, on average daily basis or a weekly basis, what was the enrollment? 16 is total served, and that's spread over a 9-week period, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So on average, we call average daily ADM is our number for reimbursement. So what's your average daily membership in this RA?
I would say, I'd say probably between 12 and 16 without looking at it roughly. Roughly without looking at the data, probably between 12 and 16. And that's also dependent upon the severity of some behaviors and some of those things.
So when they leave after 9 weeks, you backfill those students, so the population size stays same, that's what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. It should be the ebb and flow. And the goal for this working forward, if capacity is supposed to be 20, we should be getting close to that. And if we're not, we should be providing the why we're not close to that. But yes, the numbers should look consistent at all times.
And I can answer part of that, because I visited the RA Elementary on last year in one particular day, and I saw like maybe 5 kids in there. At that time, that was all the ones that I guess had misbehaved and were in there. So that's, so it just depends on the day too.
You good?
I have
Mr.
a
Bo?
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what's the total number of students
Total number of
in
students for
terms
what?
of enrolled, period,
Which
in
program?
the student body, just period?
He means the entire division.
And
We're a little over 7,000 throughout the division.
ADM is how much? Ms. James, you may have
Yeah.
she can get it for you.
It's approximately 7,120.
Approximately.
thank you.
But of course, it's a little bit more because those are the kids that we get our state funding.
That is
Correct.
It's
correct.
a little bit more.
Correct.
That is correct. There are other students that aren't in
Correct.
that count that we serve on a daily basis.
Mr. Jalil?
What is your understanding of the process of holding parents accountable for extreme and repeat misbehavior?
I would need a little bit more clarity on that before I could answer that well.
Have you taken that action in the past and holding parents accountable for repeat behavior that's really extreme?
Parents are always involved in any disciplinary action, any repeat behaviors. So conversations, meetings, plans, a behavior plan that I mentioned earlier. They're always involved and always encouraged to be at the table when we're having those discussions. I can say that I have been a part of several conversations from behavior plans, disciplinary actions, appeal processes, just different things throughout the division where I've had parents present and very much a part of those plans.
That's good. I sat in on one of the discipline committee meetings, and I saw the parents and child, and I just don't have any follow-up on how the parents are dealt with if the student continues really bad behavior.
We continue to collaborate across the board so that we can work towards that improved behavior, providing strategies, consistency, and just that continued communication. So we do have, I can say from where I have sat, we've had a great deal of parent participation, and I had really, really positive interactions with parents. They want the best for their students as well.
Good.
Yeah.
Other question, we good? Superintendent, other, anything else for Restore?
It is. Ms. Jamies is going to give the financial implications.
Go ahead.
So I provided you at your seats the most condensed report that I could on this. Some of these word letters almost are around 100 pages apiece. We tried to collapse all of the tenets of them. This document is broke out into 3 categories: your funding sources, your program staff, and your purchase services. So I'll just briefly highlight each of these areas, and if you have questions, feel free to jump in and ask those questions. The first funding source that we're going to look at is the school-based mental health grant. It is a competitive grant that we seek, and in 2023, January of 2023, we were actually awarded this grant. So this is a unique grant in that it's a calendar year grant, not a fiscal year grant. We're used to working on fiscal years, so we have to look at this grant a little bit different. I've provided you the total award amount that we received in 2023, and then the breakdown of each of those awards until the grant ends December 31st, 2027. The required match on this grant is $300,000 per $1.5 million. So we every year have to set aside $300,000 per the grant pull down that we get. So I have provided you with the reserve that we have had up to this date. We have $300,000 for 23, $300,000 for 24, 25. We overspent and had to use a portion of that $300,000, and so we only have $150,000 for 2025. There are employees associated with this grant, and so this is sort of a hybrid grant. Not everything in this grant is associated with the Restore program. So these positions, these employees that you see, are not Restore employees. The same way with the retention stipends. They are not as well. What we want to focus on for the Restore program is the service, the $2.6 million services. We are able to use these services to work towards the Restore program. There is also some travel and some indirect costs built into that grant as well. Yes, sir.
You said to jump in, right?
Yeah, absolutely, sir.
So there are employees associated with these, and when the sunset happens in the grant,
Yes, sir.
how do you sustain the cash flow to keep those positions going? You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. That's when we actually have the hard discussions. I will say the grant is built so that this required match, the set aside, if we build it up enough, it can operate this program for an additional year. That's how the grantors set it in place. So if we continue to build that set aside, they allow that we can use that set aside funding for an additional year built on this grant. At that point, unless other grant money is found to sustain these programs, then it becomes a local initiative, and we need to have discussions on where that local money is coming from.
Because people's livelihood are dependent on this, right? So the sunset happens, they are out of job, right? Am I correct in that assumption? Unless the money is found in the operating budget.
So all employees that sign contracts with LCS understand that it's an agreement for a year at a time.
Oh, okay.
Anytime an employee signs an agreement who is grant funded, there is language built into those contracts that should this grant end or we are not allotted this grant again, those positions go away. Everyone who works for LCS reads that in their agreement before signing it. So it's a hard pill to swallow, I understand, because you never expect to lose the funding, but legally, we are covered in the annual contract process for that.
So they know it's short-term employment.
People who apply for these grant positions are told at the onset, it's posted as a grant, and in their agreement, it says these are grant funds.
That's the employee, I'm sorry.
But you said that these positions weren't necessarily
These-
directly attached to the grant.
Correct. These positions in this grant are other mental health positions, your RBTs, your other positions that also work in LCS outside of the Restore program. So these,
the
correct.
Restore grant money goes away because these people are also employed in other aspects.
Well, so those 14 employees have also signed the same contracts and understand that this is grant funding. So set aside the Restore Academy, these 14 people who are working through this grant understand that this is grant funding. So they are in the same category as individuals working through the Restore grant.
Ms. James, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to try to, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think what he's asking, because you're going through that first grant, the school-based mental health grant, and I feel like what Mr. Connor is asking, because there are going to be a few other grants that she's going to cover, is you had mentioned some of the employees were not in this particular grant, I think at the beginning. Just to clarify, maybe how many we have in this particular grant that are paid out, or maybe who was paid, not who, but how many were paid out at the beginning, and
So,
then how many are local now?
The mental health grant, there are not Restore positions in the mental health. There are not FTE funds built into that based on the way the grant was submitted. Those 14 employees, I wanted to provide all of your grant information to you on the school-based mental health. Those 14 employees work in other areas outside of the Restore Academy.
So that's my
Yes.
question, because they work in other areas outside. If the Restore money disappears, they're already locked in other places.
Yes, sir.
So we would have to,
Yes, sir, until 2027.
until 2027. And at that point, because they are also working in other capacities, they're not directly connected to these grants.
They are grant individuals working in other programs that this grant supports.
They're in other locations across the division. So
Yes.
Dual purpose.
these people in here they're part of that grant, but they're not in RA elementary or RA secondary, but they're placed in other places across the division.
Which means that if the grant goes away,
Then
operationally, we'll have to,
you have to absorb or eliminate
that's what I
those
wanted to
positions.
hear.
Yes, sir.
Just to
That's correct.
reiterate, the school-based mental health grant provides purchase services for the RA Academy in the tune of
they are
$2,673,122. So the vendors that we use, we can get reimbursed from this school-based mental health grant for services provided to the restorative academies.
But once this grant goes away, if the board doesn't decide to absorb the cost in the operational budget, or we don't have the opportunity, we're not in that position, then those positions go away, but also those purchase services would go away as well. And those purchase services go to the Restore Academy under this grant. But under this grant, the employees are not at Restore, but they're across the division.
That is correct.
Does that help any?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Let me know, let me know.
So does that mean the funding for from the grant, that's not their entire salary, that's a portion of their salary being paid to those positions?
In some cases, unless they are distributed across several areas, it is their entire
Okay.
salary. It just depends on how their distributions and how they're used within the schools. They could be part local funded and they could be part grant funded. It just depends on what that looks like.
And Mr. Connor, before Ms. Jamie goes on, this is, when I said earlier convoluted, we've been peeling back layers and layers and layers, and I'll tell you, she's done a fantastic job of, I mean, they were in here at 5 this morning, still sifting through the grants, because it was so intertwined. It was so many different grants. I think I went into maybe yesterday morning thinking, oh, there are only 2 grants. And then today they do some more digging, and then there were other grants that were associated. So it's a lot here, and that's why I said it's gonna be a lot for you all for us to discuss and process with you all.
Luckily, you have homework. You can take this away and really get into it.
Well, thank you so much.
You're so welcome, sir. Okay, moving on to, any other questions?
Would you prefer a deeper dive in the finance committee later on? It has a lot of financial implications for sustainability of the staffing, sustainability of the services. Because we talked about employees, how about the students?
Yeah, we're gonna
Okay.
look at the
So-
services and all of that later on in the report. So I just wanted to touch base with the STOP grant. That grant it runs through September 30th, 2026. It is completely Restore. The STOP grant provides positions in the Restore program to help cover the individuals working in that. And then the employee retention bonuses, stipends, and training, they provide training funding too, as well as some toolkits that they can work with in that program. So that grant completely, everything in it goes to fund the Restore elementary and secondary programs. I've provided you with an additional block grant that funding, I duly noted that it ended September 30th, 2024, but I wanted to provide you the complete picture of all the grants that have supported the Restore programs up to this point. That block grant was for $108,000. It covered employees' training and services. It did not fully fund FTEs or full-time position employees for that grant. It did in last fall. Provided you, any questions?
Yes.
Yes,
Was
absolutely.
there any, most of the time these grants have a local match. Did these 2 grants not have a local match component?
It's a block grant. It did not have a local match. I would have.
The stop or the block?
The STOP does not have a local match for the block. Generally, block grants kind of don't have one.
I wanted to piggyback on his question. You have a whole bunch of grants, right? So what was your total local match last year? I don't have a calculator to go through. Do you have that number, or you can provide that later on, just?
I can provide you more detailed, but the only local match we had was for this hybrid grant that is listed in here, and that was for the $300,000 set aside per year. Block grants usually don't have local matches unless it's stipulated when you're applying for the grant.
And indirect cost comes into our pocket, or indirect cost is a profit, the district? Well, a profit is the wrong word, I mean, that comes into our piggy bank, right?
Well,
That's it, for administrative cost of running the program.
yeah, indirect costs are most likely absorbed by the school district in order to get these programs out of there, out into the schools. So, for example, all the finance staff, the financial analysts who are putting in for reimbursement on this grant, we are providing them jobs to do this, not necessarily getting anything back from these grants. That makes sense?
So could you transition to I know they're looking through the different grant pieces, and a lot of them ended prior to now, but
Yeah, one of them did, yes.
but the STOP grant is one that goes through 2026, and that's the basis of
Yes, ma'am.
Restore, can you kind of transition to program staff, if that's okay, where you have those big numbers there, and then that way they can make those connections?
Absolutely. The block grant and the additional block grant and contract grant will end in, one ended in June and one ended in September. So moving on to the program staff, it's the second blue highlight. I have provided you with the FTEs, which is full-time equivalent for a position for each area that works in the Restore. What we did is we went through and pulled out any job title that had Restore Academy in it, to provide that to you. In the program staff for the elementary, we have 8 positions, 8 full-time equivalent positions. In the Restorative Academy secondary, and I've also provided you with the total salary and benefits and the total cost of these positions as well. Secondary, we have, as soon as I find my right.
7.
piece of paper. 7,
Yes,
thank
7.
you. We have 7 full-time equivalent positions. The Restorative Suspension Center, we have 3 full-time employee equivalent. We also have an additional set of funding for Life Push Mentoring that is provided through that program. Fort Hill, we have 3 full-time equivalents. Bass, we have 1 full-time equivalent. So that brings us to a full-time equivalent of 22 individuals working in the Restored program. Total salary of that's $1,150,800.43. Total benefits, $465,749.25.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
For elementary, your total budget is 612,179. When I divide it by average number of 16 students served, it comes out to be about 38,000. I know it's not about dollars and cents. That's the average per student cost for taking care of. What is the average cost in a regular school for the same student,
So,
for providing educational services?
we would have to do a deeper dive on that. There is a cost that ADM gives us
Is it
for,
12,000?
it's 7,000, I have to,
Around there.
yeah, 7,195, something like that. Don't quote me on that amount. I have to look that up. But yeah, it's approximately a little over $7,000 per student. That is what the state says.
State program.
Now, that is for state funding. There's also local costs associated with covering those students as well. So we would have to do a deeper, by the number of students, doing the full budget amount for that.
If you do a superficial dive, I think it's about $12,000
Yes.
compared to 38,000 here. So what is the extra benefit we're getting, or what are we providing for that additional? I know I'm talking dollars and cents, but you know, it's just, that's a $26,000 difference.
So if you're asking me as the CFO, I would say those students are harder to serve. So you have, if you want to take care of every student under your purview, some students cost more and some students cost less. So you have to determine what the benefit of taking care of those marginalized students are, and if we can afford and absorb that cost. That would be my statement as the CFO.
As a grant funded is fine, but when it starts coming from the operating budget, then it becomes, a big question mark. Where will we get that money from? And are we getting the value for the money? Or are we taking it away from other places to fund this? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
What is the opportunity cost of using that high-end?
Yes, sir, and I'm sure we'll have some very pertinent discussions regarding all of the benefits of this. We just wanted to provide you an overview of the programs and provide you information on the funding that you may not have gotten or may not remember from the past. So,
I will request to put it on the finance agenda
Yes.
They can look at it, lot more, you call it a deeper dive, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
can I ask one more?
Go ahead, Mr. Poe.
So, how long has the restorative program been in existence?
We're going into our third year.
Third year? And are there any data on the students that have been in the restorative program? And I'm piggybacking off of your question just to see if it's effective for those students possibly.
Data would be right there.
So some of the things that we put on the slide showed where it was a successful transition, specific to RA elementary and secondary, and please don't quote me, I think 43 for secondary transition back in successfully. If you want the data prior to that, I can go, I'm more than happy to go back and get that as well for RA elementary, but we did put it up for just specifically last year because both programs were staffed at that time, so that's why I provided that particular data.
If I'm not mistaken, it's not a matter of whether or not, if we want to provide these services, we are mandated if they have certain requirements. Am I missing something here? We have to take care of these students if they're within our zone, our area.
You mean by providing the
Services.
education?
Yes.
Educational services?
Yes, and if they need more attention, we have to put that in there, or we have to put them on some other at-home program that's not going to be, probably not going to be followed. So it's not an issue of whether or not we want to, we need to provide that service. If I'm not mistaken.
If they have an IEP,
It's, albeit
and a
IEPs.
504 plan that has
Yes.
certain educational.
That's
not-
government mandated.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what
These-
most of these, that's what I'm thinking, that most of these have those IEPs or
Some may and some
Some may
may
not.
not.
some may not.
Yeah,
Okay.
so again, I preface this, the focus of these programs is not specific to, that's why I was waiting, so I give you the right answer. It's to help with the behaviors, to curb some of those behaviors so that they're successful in their classroom. So they could have something, they could not. It's not really based on that. Our programs do serve students with special education services. We do have a special education
Okay.
teacher at both RA elementary and RA secondary. So that could certainly be a service there, but it doesn't mean that they are receiving special education services or on a 504 plan.
If they were purely mandated services, then they will not be solely dependent on a grant funding. There'll be an
Well,
operation.
that was my point.
There'll be an operation budget line for them, which is not the case. So that tells you it's not mandatory, it's,
Yeah, my concern is, why is the cost differential so wide between those students and the other students?
We're servicing, it's more students, more staff in those buildings, so talking about percentages, that's why it spreads a little bit more, and then that state average. So when we're looking at this based on number of students served, and you're starting or creating a program, these were the operational staff selected for that program when it came to fruition. So when we're talking about a one-to-one, essentially, it's getting close to a 1-to-2 if you're looking at it for student to staff. So that's why that cost is gonna go up that much more.
No question.
go ahead.
So in the long run, since this program's only 3 years old, should the grants not be renewed, then we go back, the kids go back to their base schools and we develop a plan for behavior there. The RA disappears completely, is what I'm saying.
We would wanna make sure, no matter what we're doing programmatically, that we're providing those supports.
I'm just saying,
Yes.
as far as the RA school area, that would have to disappear and have to go back to the base schools, and we'd have to work at something.
We'd have to work on a
what-
successful transitional plan in some form or
Yeah.
fashion, yes.
Okay.
If I may, I have one other section of data in your packet, and that's purchase services, and that speaks to that school-based mental health grant. I have provided you with the past 3 fiscal years of vendors used by the Restore academies, and I have also provided what the services that those vendors provided you. We don't have to go through them. I just wanted to point that out for your later review if you want to go through this.
Go ahead. What were you saying? Good.
You all are good.
Other questions?
Bring it to finance.
I do have one
Go
more,
ahead,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Poe.
So the grants that have expired, are they able to be reapplied for, or?
The block grant
Yeah.
and, they can if VDOE allows for their application of those. So, yes. And we have a grant staff that are in constant communication with VDOE if there's any additional funding. In fact, they are contacting VDOE saying, hey, if someone else doesn't use their funding and you want to take it back, we will be happy to use that funding to serve our students. So we're constantly in communication with VDOE to see if there are any other opportunities to provide supports like that.
I have one last question,
Yes,
if I
sir.
can ask it.
Absolutely.
Back to, you don't have to put it back up, but the TAP.
Yes.
The Transition Alternative
Yes, sir.
Program is operationally funded.
It's been in existence, yes, since
Yes.
2013. Now, there could still be, and I think that's what we could take the deeper dive into, that could still be some of the grant funding for some services. May not be positions, but for some services could be coming out of the grant, but that has been in existence. And I don't want to speak out of turn. I think that may have also started as a pilot program in like 2012, 2013 timeframe, as well, but please don't
When
quote
is
me
that
on that.
Sheffield?
Yeah, it's actually been a couple of places, yes, sir. It was most recently at Bass. This year it will be at TC Miller.
Right.
On a wing. So yes, it's been a few places.
So there is some room there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We've already walked the building, mapped.
Okay.
Our maintenance,
I'm saying, if we were to lose this grant funding, there is some room within the TAP program for additional students, and the staff is already covered through operations. I mean, we're gonna bring it to the,
I wouldn't say it's additional room in there because right now they're at their max capacity. But we would have to take a look at programs to say, would we need to look at staffing? What type of staffing would we need to provide? So I think really in the direction, as we're taking a look at numbers, I can walk that with Dr. Majette and this group to say, this is what we would need to help make everything successful.
In all honesty, in the absence of additional grant funds, we would have to reallocate and look at areas that may not be as viable and move funding around if it's going to be a local cost associated with it. But as I said, we're trying to get grants every day to minimize the local costs.
Jaleel.
Yes. How and when are these 4 vendors listed in the back here evaluated for the quality of the services they give to our children?
Yes, they're procured through a process, and we have staff on site that work with them and meet with them and look at the results from their services that they're providing to the students.
And they report back to you?
That, not to me, they report back to the staff that oversees.
I appreciate you, they wouldn't have reported to me. This is still new for me, so transition, so I can't say they report to me, but they would report to LCS, yes.
Going back to the purchase services, the last year it went up by about 10%. That's inflationary, or that's something which is to a red flag at you? That's why you put those?
Well, it's a variable. Maybe there were more students that needed those particular services in that fiscal year as opposed to the prior fiscal year. There could be a lot of variables that feed into an increase or a decrease. So, yes.
I have one question.
Ben, go.
This may be a question more for a deep dive in finance committee or something, so just tell me if that's the case. But I'm having a hard time overlooking this thing that says there was overspent money without kind of asking some questions. Do we know what happened and how that happened? And does that set us off trajectory? One, do we foresee it happening again this year? And does it set us on a trajectory where we're not fully funded for the extra year after all?
So this particular school-based mental health grant working on the calendar year. Their January through along about May, they had an influx of students needing services. And so that influx was met with those vendors coming and providing those services. So when there was some transition in leadership for this particular program, and at that point when that transition happened, we stepped in and said, we've got to stop these services until the next tranche of grant funding drops in January. So it's as overspent as it's going to be right now, because those vendors have been made aware that we will not be utilizing their services. Now, there's going to be a gap there from now until January when with the new funding drops. We'll have to figure it out as a team. So, yes.
Thank you.
May I add to that? So I was thinking about it, Mr. Barron, when you were asking Ms. Jamies that question. That's one of the things, and Dr. Davis sort of alluded to it a few minutes ago with your question, Mr. Jalil. Obviously, I'm new here. Dr. Davis is new in her position. Ms. Jamies has been just over a year now. And when I mentioned earlier about peeling back the layers, there are pieces that when I know our new members heard earlier when we kept talking about systems and sustainability during that orientation earlier, that's why these things are so important, because it was some of those systems or that sustainability really wasn't, those systems weren't in place for it to change from one hand to the other, to be able to know what had happened, what was that history. And so that's why we said for tonight, it really was peeling back the layers. So I know it was a lot of information at one time, and your questions have been really good questions, and we are making note of it, of things so that we can come back to Finance Committee and really do a deeper dive, as Ms. James was saying, into it. But that is really one of the things. It's finding out who did what was the why behind it, what was the award. Like, I'll give you an example. One of the grants, and why they were here so early this morning and we were still looking, this has been an ongoing conversation till I think Dr. Davis and I talked to midnight one night, just trying to peel this back and get information. But we had narratives for the grant applications of what you submit, but we couldn't find the award letters of what you actually get, because you may request $50 million but get $250,000. And what was happening, we had the beginning, we had pieces of narratives, but then we didn't always have what the grant award letter was. And so it took a lot of digging with contacting various agencies and things, because that information, it wasn't stored, it wasn't shared. And so now it's really in a situation where, and this is just my perspective, and I'll talk more in the entry plan of what we're doing, as we're digging through some of these things, this was the best information that we could get to be able to give you at least a snapshot of where we are. And then, of course, we'll keep digging. And like I said, we started out thinking 2 grants, and we found out there were multiple grants in this. But I think one of the big things is, hey, absolutely making sure that we're going to serve kids and we're going to take care of children. And also, are we going to look at doing it in ways that are fiscally responsible? Because as the grant flows, we want to be full and transparent, and being transparent is making sure we understand where we are is as the grant fades. And that's why I focused on, I believe it was the STOP grant, of looking at that date. It goes to September 30 of 2026. What does that look like for the division? Should we be at that place where the grant is no longer paying for some of the employees or some of the services? What's our plan? And I didn't want us to get, I'm glad you all asked this question, and you'll get more information about many other departments, but what's our plan as we start looking forward? We don't want to get to next summer and say, oh, what do we do? But just kind of what's our plan for this? Is that something we're petitioning City Council for during the budget process? Or is that something that, hey, let's reimagine this and look at some other ways that we can do it? And I know she mentioned, going for various grants, and we can always look at what's available. But one of the key things that is in place now, that every grant has to go through her department. Because when it doesn't, then we run into issues of where, hey, I have this grant and this is great, but then you may have $500,000 local match, and we don't ever want to obligate the board to something that they cannot do and can't sustain, because sustainability is important.
So I appreciate you taking a deeper dive, because fiduciary responsibility is prime responsibility of this board. And this board, I think, appreciates you being proactive, looking into it so we can sustain those services for our kids. That's very important, and there's employment tied to people who serve LCS and in this community. But I appreciate you pointing out that I'm looking at Mr. DePaul, Mr. Connor, and Mr. Nigel, Finance Committee will look at it, right?
Yes,
Take a deeper dive, and you'll have more data for them to look at, more information
yes.
as and when available. Good? Thank you very much. Next one is your entry plan. Go ahead.
Yes, so I know I've referenced this many times, but this deeper dive, I thought when we first started tonight, I said, I probably should have started with the entry plan first and then this, but here we are. But this is my entry plan. I know I mentioned it on July 1. I have started, but just want to kind of let you know where we are. So as always, the purpose of this for me marks the beginning of my tenure here, starting July 1. And then the goal for me is to just be transparent in my leadership. And like I said, being transparent doesn't mean, hey, I'm just telling you everything. I'm giving you information and trying to give it in a way that you understand. And we're always going to focus on what matters most, the kids. That's the center of what we're doing. Just no adult comfort. We want adults to be okay, but it has to be the main focus, has to be students. So over these next few months, like I said, I'm just going to listen, learn, look at opportunities for growth, look at our strengths, because there are many strengths in this division. We have really good people and we have great kids. And so really highlighting and elevating those things. So there are 2 phases, July through September. Like I said, observe, listen, and learn, visit schools, classrooms across the division. I have my individual meetings scheduled with most of the board members. I know some of you are still checking your schedules, and I appreciate that. Administrative staff, administrators and staff, attending community events and listen to families and students. I was really, really pleased with the turnout at the welcome event, and I believe I spoke to every single person that was there, which was wonderful. I was so appreciative that they waited around to talk to me. And similar to tonight, review data on student achievement operations and programs, okay? October through December, you'll see all the observations that I've made. Like I said, if there's anything that's mission critical, you'll hear about it now. Those other pieces, when we come back October through December, sharing observations, any insights that I may have with the board, identifying areas of priority. What are our priorities when we get to that point? Begin that strategic planning with staff, the students, families, and community. And then as a team, collaboratively, and when I say as a team, working with my team here, of course, collaborating with the board, because I'm here to carry out your vision, define the next steps for us, for our long-term progress. So my goals, I have 5 goals. Number 1, the root of everything, student learning and success. That's what we all here for. Board, superintendent partnership. I do look at it as, I work for you and serve as work at the pleasure of the board, but I do look at it as a partnership because we all want the same thing. We want our kids to be successful. Leadership development and support. Operational efficiency and structure is goal 4. And then goal 5, community engagement and communication. So when we look at goal 1, for me, some of those activities, of course, student learning and success is the most important thing for us. I know I keep saying enhancing strengths and opportunities for growth, but it's so true. Some of those activities, and all of these activities are not all inclusive. Reviewing and analyze data, like you received data tonight. Interviewing and engaging key stakeholders, just gaining an understanding of what's been happening here instructionally. And Dr. Davis has been wonderful sitting down with me, and I'll have opportunities to meet with other members of her team. Working with HR, looking at teacher retention data. We can recruit, but are we retaining our staff? And what does that look like for us? Looking at student attendance and discipline data. And then looking at observing classrooms with key instructional staff, seeing what's happening in rooms, getting that feedback from teachers and staff. And then, of course, interviewing students. They're our customers. That's who we serve. And getting a feel for what works for them and then what's not working and what do we need to do to improve. Goal 2, board superintendent partnership. Of course, discussing the entry plan, having the individual meetings. I have questions for you all. I'm sure you have questions for me. And that one-time meeting, the first meeting is not a one-time meeting, but having those individual meetings so that we can have that dialogue between one another. Develop and implement protocols for communication structures with the board. I know you have your policies, but there may be other ways that you want me to communicate items to you. So being able to find out what's needed there. Of course, establishing a regular meeting time with the school board chair and vice chair. Partnering with the board chair to plan a retreat, whether it's VSBA or another appropriate agency to facilitate your retreat. And then, of course, establishing a firm communication plan for handling division concerns and feedback, just making sure that I'm getting information to you in a timely manner and in a manner for which best serves. Goal 3, leadership development and support. And with that, you know, I always say my team here, my team across the division is vital. No one does anything alone. I don't do anything alone. So you'll rarely hear me say the I, other than saying I will meet with them. So interviewing and engaging central office, building level administrators, supervisors, teacher leaders, and students. Identifying organizational norms. I think it's easy. I've had people approach me and say, oh, well, you know, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And this is what should change, and we should do this. And for right now, I just want to see what the norms are. What's the culture? What's the climate of the division? What's the structure of how we conduct business? Do a needs assessment, see what our key issues are. What are the main concerns of our building level administration? I've served as an assistant principal. I've served as a principal. We want things the way we want them in our building. So having an opportunity to go out and talk with them. Understand the supports needed for central office staff as well as building level administration. And then looking at, are there any division-wide concerns? Are there any division-wide barriers that may hinder academic achievement and success? Are there things that we can look at that we're doing well, but are some things that are hindering success? Of course, goal 4, operational efficiency and structure. Working closely with HR, looking at staff responsibilities, our processes, finance, she's been wonderful, reviewing operational budget, our processes, and most recent financial audits. Of course, meeting with maintenance, capital improvement projects, facilities, and we do have some major projects coming up with that. Transportation, looking at transportation plans, bus routes, any related logistical things within that department. School nutrition, sort of along the same lines, looking at technology. What are our plans? What are our initiatives for supporting students and staff? And of course, instruction, reviewing academic attendance and enrollment data. And then looking at any support, any compliance regulations, any compliance complaints or anything that we may have, support plans, and then any student services needs. But looking at everything overall as a whole operationally to see where we are. And goal 5, last but certainly not least, having that community engagement and communication. Our communications department has a solid communications plan, but for me, it's just looking at, hey, participating in some pre-existing meeting structures across the city, collaborating and partnering with city council. I've already had an opportunity to meet with the city manager, and just interviewing and engaging with key community leaders. One thing that I do want to do is ride bus routes and just tour the city. You know, I can drive around on my own, but I'd love to collaborate with Ms. Watson or someone in her department to just have that opportunity to see exactly everywhere where our kids live and what's happening there. Developing a relationship with our local news outlets, joining any civic organizations, and of course reviewing communication plans and protocols, and then just review and analyze the use of social media and technology, print materials, and what avenues that we're currently communicating with the community. I just put here a list of key documents. I won't read them all to you, but just looking at all of our various plans and what we already have in place and assessing those. And I have 5 key questions that I plan to ask everyone. I know I'll start off when I start meeting with some of the board members individually. And the community members and staff. First, what do you see are your biggest strengths of LCS? One of the things that I'm big on, you know, sometimes people will stop you, and I'm sure as board members, people will stop you, and you get all of the things that they feel are wrong. But there's so many things, I think sometimes to redirect people to understand there's so much right. And oftentimes there's more right than what people perceive as wrong. So I want to start off with, what do you see as the biggest strengths of LCS? And then what challenges do you believe that we currently face? But from there, I don't believe in someone bringing me a challenge without bringing me a proposed solution. Don't just come and bring me a challenge. Let's talk about what we can do differently. So the next question is, what expanded opportunities or new ideas could help make LCS even stronger in the future? So if you bring me a challenge, that's fine. But now what can we do to make us stronger then? And then how can you best support student learning and success? Not just how best can Somerville Majette support student learning and success, but I want to ask each individual, each stakeholder, what can you do to support it? And then how do other aspects of the Lynchburg community impact our schools and students? Because everything isn't within the four walls, those walls of our schools. So how does the outside community impact our schools and students? And I think that's a good start for me to get that information and have that conversation with people, because that gives us, I feel like that gives us a different lens. And so when I come back and report out with everything after all the interviews and discussions that I'll have, I think this gives us a different lens to be able to take this information along with information from you all and other aspects and really start to mold that into what does our strategic plan look like? How are we encompassing? How do we build upon the things we're doing well? How do we provide solutions for our challenges? But then let's be realistic about what are those aspects of the greater community that may have an impact, both negative or positive, on our schools and students. So that is my entry plan of what my first 100 days looks like. Like I said, I've been here since July 1. And
22 days.
well, look, 22 calendar days, 22 calendar days. On paper, not as many, but absolutely. And it's been some really rich conversations that I've had an opportunity to have with community members and with staff. And we still have a long way to go. I have many more questions, and I joke with the team, my questions have questions. So I'll start with these 5. But definitely just excited about continuing to jump into this and get some feedback from people so that we can develop the vision.
You're okay with questions from the board members?
Oh, absolutely.
Questions on entry plan or suggestions?
Do you want these answers in essay format?
No, we're gonna sit and discuss. I'll take all the notes. Yes, yes.
Got my homework already.
No homework. But it is some food for thought, so those who are meeting with me soon, definitely just start thinking about those things. And again, I know that first session of the 1 hour is not gonna cover everything, so I recognize we'll have multiple, should your schedules allow, to continue to keep those conversations going.
I know you're doing strategic planning based on this in October, but I hope you bring the process for strategic planning to the Academic Success Committee and the finance, so you know, because there'll be contractual things you'll be doing. So hope we take a much deeper dive in terms of the roadmap you will be following for your strategic planning before we turn on the button saying, here we run now.
Yes, absolutely. We actually, Ms. James and I, I came in on Sunday to make sure I did my part of it, to do the sections for the RFP, so that we can get that to you all and get that out so that we can get a vendor.
So those RFPs, maybe you can share with the finance committee, see,
Yes.
this is the qualifications we are looking for. That gives us sort of an idea, sort of the
Yes.
framework you are developing. You know, like a building plan you're
Yes.
developing for the building to be constructed.
Yes, sir.
So, I for one like the idea that you are proactive. You know, you are a solution provider instead of problem finder. And your passion is wonderful, man. You're 22 days, you're full of energy, and we're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. I think the whole community, but I'm hearing very good things about you, and I think everybody else is. So thank you for joining the LCS family.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Yes.
You have a long,
Excited you're
long
here.
journey.
Yes,
Lynchburg.
that's the goal. Thank
It's an honor and privilege to be sitting beside you and serving
you.
our little kids.
That's very kind. Thank you.
Other,
Honored to be here.
go ahead, Mr. Jalil.
Once you determine what our culture and everything here is, if there is a place around the country that is very successful with the same numbers and demographics that we have, why reinvent the wheel? Feel free to copy and paste, and just let us know how that, we can help that.
Great point. As educators, we borrow all the time. If it's
Yes.
working really well here and we have similar demographics, so you're absolutely right. Now, I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. If it's working here, let's take it and then let's tweak it a little bit for the LCS way. Yes, sir. Great point.
Okay,
Fine,
thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Consent agenda.
Next one is consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion?
Second?
Mr. Connor, Mrs. Lowry, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Discussion?
Consent agenda doesn't have, there's a discussion, I don't.
There, okay.
Go ahead, I'll give you the.
Okay, I just want to, in the consent agenda, I would like to withdraw the last one for two reasons. One is I want to comment on it briefly, and secondly, I'm just illustrating that any board member has the capability to pull out any of the items from the consent agenda. One of the purposes of the consent agenda is simply to pass it because it's pretty much agreeable.
Now there's a motion on the floor, so you're out of order. There was a motion seconded for approval of consent agenda. So we got to vote on that, because that pulling should have been done prior to motion and second.
There was no room for that.
But
I can pull that
Wanna make a-
anytime based
Does
on
you
the
want to make
policy.
a alternate motion or
substitute motion.
Motion.
I don't have to do a motion. I'm just pulling it from the consent agenda. That's part of the way it's.
I'm
this
calling you
particular-
out of order right now because there's a motion and there's a second to that motion.
We can do an alternative motion or a secondary motion, but I don't,
So
I
if
know
you-
it's not required.
That's your only choice. You can do a substitute motion if you want to. There has to be a second.
That is,
Yeah.
that is incorrect, but I will go that way. That's fine. I'm pulling the fourth item off the consent agenda and complimenting the effort to bring forth a quality piece of equipment for our schools. And if we can do that consistently and have what we need for the students, that's great. So I'm in support of that. That's it for that. And secondly, any board member can pull an item from the agenda for immediate discussion, and then that's it. We don't have to do much else than that. That's all. It's all back onto the agenda, and it's all voted on fairly briefly.
Do you have a motion or you made your statement? What,
I made my statement.
You gave your statement. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Barron?
Yes.
Mr. Ali?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mr. Jalil?
Yes.
Dr. Farmer?
Yes.
Mr. Poe?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Right. Next is informational item. The next school board meeting is August 5th at 5 PM in School Administration Building, and the meeting is adjourned.
Amen.